There is a specific moment. You can probably feel it right now just thinking about it. It's the moment you stop trusting yourself. Not because something broke inside you, but because someone, quietly, systematically, over weeks or months, made you believe that your perception of reality was wrong, that your memory was faulty, that your emotions were too much, that you were, somehow, the problem. That moment is not an accident. It has a name, and once you understand exactly how it's engineered, you will never be fooled by it again. This is gaslighting, and today I'm going to show you the mechanics behind it, step by step, layer by layer, so you can recognize it, name it, and protect yourself from it before it rewires your mind. The first thing gaslighters do is target your memory. Memory is the foundation of your reality. If you can't trust what you remember, you can't trust anything. And gaslighters know this. It starts with small corrections. That's not what I said. You're remembering it wrong. That never happened. They don't confront your memory head-on. They erode it, drip by drip, incident by incident. At first you push back. You're certain. But they are so calm, so confident, and you start to wonder, is it possible? Did I misunderstand? This is not a fair disagreement between two people with different recollections. This is a deliberate strategy. The gaslighter isn't uncertain. They know exactly what was said. They know exactly what happened. They are betting that your self-doubt is stronger than your self-knowledge. And here is the most insidious part. The more they deny your memory, the more you start to interrogate it. You replay conversations. You second-guess yourself. You become so focused on whether you're right that you lose track of the fact that they're lying. The target is not your memory. The target is your confidence in your memory. Those are two very different things. The second technique is emotional dismissal. When a gaslighter can't attack your memory, they attack your emotions. You're too sensitive. You're overreacting. You're making a big deal out of nothing. You always do this. This works because most people, at some level, fear being unreasonable. We want to be seen as stable, rational, composed. The gaslighter exploits exactly this fear. Every time you express hurt, frustration, or concern, they frame it as a character flaw. Your emotional response becomes the problem, not the behavior that caused it. The conversation shifts from what they did to what's wrong with you. Over time, you stop bringing up your feelings at all, not because nothing bothers you, but because every time you do, you leave the conversation feeling worse about yourself than when you started. You learn to silence yourself, and they never had to ask you to do it. You did it voluntarily because they made the cost too high. This is one of the most effective forms of psychological control ever developed. It requires no force, no threats, just consistent, calculated emotional invalidation. Third, they isolate your perception from outside verification. One of the most dangerous things you can do in a relationship with a gaslighter is talk to other people about what's happening. Not because those people are a threat to you, but because the gaslighter knows they are a threat to the illusion. The moment an outside perspective confirms what you've been experiencing, the gaslighting begins to collapse. So gaslighters preemptively discredit your sources. Your friends don't really understand you. Your family has always been manipulative. That therapist is giving you bad advice. Anyone who supports your version of reality becomes suspect. They don't necessarily forbid you from talking to people. They just plant enough doubt about those people's motives that you begin filtering everything you hear through a layer of suspicion. And they position themselves as the only one who truly understands you, who truly has your best interest at heart. This is how gaslighting becomes a closed system. Every external check on reality is neutralized. Every internal alarm gets dismissed. And the only voice left standing is theirs. Fourth technique, inconsistency as a weapon. This is less discussed but critically important. Gaslighters are frequently kind, warm, generous, even loving. This is not despite the abuse, it is part of it. If they were consistently cruel, you would leave. The pattern would be clear. But the intermittent warmth creates something far more powerful: confusion. You start to cling to the good moments as proof that the bad moments aren't as bad as they seem. You tell yourself, but they can be so caring. Maybe I am the problem. The inconsistency itself becomes the trap. You spend enormous psychological energy trying to figure out which version of this person is the real one. And while you're focused on that question, you're not focused on protecting yourself. Psychologists call this intermittent reinforcement. It's the same mechanism that makes gambling addictive. Unpredictable rewards are more psychologically compelling than consistent ones. The gaslighter, consciously or not, creates a cycle of warmth and coldness that makes you work harder and harder to understand them, and keeps you from walking away. Fifth, reality reframing. This is where gaslighting moves from individual tactics to a full-scale reconstruction of how you see the world. At this stage, it's no longer about specific arguments or incidents. The gaslighter has successfully replaced your interpretive framework with their own. When something bad happens, you automatically see it through their lens. When you feel hurt, you automatically ask yourself whether you're being too sensitive before you even speak to them. They have installed a voice in your head, and it sounds like yours, but it's not. The signs of this stage are subtle. You catch yourself automatically defending them before anyone has accused them of anything. You feel guilt about things that, objectively, don't warrant it. You've stopped asking yourself, "What do I think?" and replaced it entirely with "What will they think?" This stage is the most serious because the control no longer requires their presence. They don't need to be in the room. The architecture they've built in your mind does the work for them. Sixth, the false consensus trap. Gaslighters will frequently invoke external authority to validate their version of reality. Everyone agrees with me. Even your friends said you've been difficult lately. My whole family sees what I'm talking about. You are not being given evidence. You are being given the illusion of consensus. In most cases, these conversations either never happened or were framed in such a way that the agreement was manufactured. But the effect is powerful, because humans are social animals. We calibrate our perception of reality in part through other people. When someone tells you that everyone shares their view, a part of you wants to defer. It would be socially reckless not to. What the gaslighter has done is exploit one of the deepest human mechanisms, our fear of being wrong while everyone else is right. The counter to this is not to argue. It's to ask for specifics. Who? When? What exactly was said? The false consensus evaporates the moment it's held up to direct scrutiny, because it was never real. It was a psychological pressure tactic, and pressure tactics lose their power when you stop letting them remain vague. Seventh, the cumulative effect, when doubt becomes your default. Here is where everything converges. After sustained exposure to all these tactics, memory denial, emotional dismissal, source discrediting, intermittent warmth, reality reframing, false consensus, something shifts in how your brain operates. Self-doubt stops being a response to specific events. It becomes your default state. You no longer need to be challenged to feel uncertain. You feel uncertain automatically about your perceptions, about your decisions, about your right to feel anything at all. This is the intended outcome of long-term gaslighting. Not just control over the relationship, but the installation of a permanent internal auditor that questions everything you experience in real time before you've even expressed it. Recovery from this stage is real, but it requires understanding that this doubt was engineered. It is not evidence that you were wrong. It is evidence that someone worked hard to make you think you were wrong. That is a very different thing. The first step back to reality is this. Trust the pattern, not just the incident. 1 argument, you might misread. 5 arguments, 10, 20, all ending the same way, with you doubting yourself and them walking away, vindicated? That is not a coincidence. That is a system. Gaslighting does not announce itself. It never says, "I am going to make you stop trusting yourself." It works precisely because it feels, from the inside, like you're just having honest conversations with someone who sees things differently. But you now know the structure, the sequence, the 7 mechanisms through which a false reality gets constructed inside someone's mind. Memory erosion, emotional dismissal, source isolation, intermittent reinforcement, reality reframing, false consensus, chronic self-doubt. Each one is a stone in a wall, and now that you can see the wall, you can choose not to let it be built. The most powerful thing you can do after learning this is not to go looking for gaslighters everywhere. It's to return to yourself, to begin trusting your own perceptions again, carefully, deliberately, without needing external permission. Because you were never the problem, you were the target. And there is a significant difference between those two things.